Pakistan in turmoil right now. Washington nervously watching and putting pressure on President Pervez Musharraf as he violently cracks down on civil unrest. He's declared a state of emergency, suspended Pakistan's constitution, and indefinitely postponed parliamentary elections. Among the latest developments happening right now, thousands of people, including many lawyers and journalists, are being detained by police, with many jails reported to be overflowing. Most media have been blacked out except for the state-run channels. And the Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice, has called General Musharraf in the last few hours to voice U.S. opposition to his actions. Our State Department correspondent, Zain Verji, is in the Middle East. She's watching all of this unfold. Zain?
Wolf, today the first signs of resistance to martial law in Pakistan. Showdown on the streets of Pakistan since Pervez Musharraf declared emergency rule on Saturday. Police using brutal force against protesters, spraying tear gas, beating and dragging away bloodied lawyers, opposition leaders and human rights activists. The media silenced. The crackdown is a wake-up call for Washington.
And our hope is that it will restore democracy as quickly as possible.
The U.S. is calling off defense talks with Pakistan in protest. The U.S. ambassador meeting with Musharraf with a message from the Secretary of State. Cooperating on terror is not a replacement for democracy.
We believe that the best path for Pakistan is to quickly return to a constitutional path and then to hold elections.
The Bush administration says it will review the $1 billion a year U.S. aid sent to Pakistan, but not at the expense of its number one priority.
We are mindful not to do anything that would undermine ongoing counterterrorism efforts.
Most of U.S. aid goes to fighting al-Qaeda and the Taliban in Pakistan. The rest goes to winning the hearts and minds of those who have not fallen prey to extremism.
We can't, for example, cut off all aid. That would hurt us even more than it would hurt them, because quite honestly, the United States is dependent on Pakistan, as imperfect as it is.
I would send Vice President Cheney, who's a buddy of Musharraf's, go to Pakistan and say to him, unless you seriously go after al-Qaeda, unless you restore your constitution, bring back the Supreme Court, and have elections in January, we're going to cut off your aid.
For the U.S., there are few good options. Privately, officials worry if Musharraf can't weather the storm, his successor may not be as helpful in the war on terror. And if he goes and Pakistan implodes, its nuclear weapons could fall into the hands of al-Qaeda. They know, too, if the U.S. sticks by the dictator until the bitter end, like it did with the Shah of Iran, it could lose Pakistan if there's a revolution. So the U.S. is signaling it will criticize Musharraf, continue to stand by him, hoping that his move doesn't put him out of a job or the U.S. out of a critical ally. Wolf?
Zain Verji on the scene for us in nearby Dubai. The crisis in Pakistan, a major concern for the U.S., not only because of the implications for the war on terror, but also a fear of what could happen to Pakistan's nuclear arsenal. Let's go to our senior Pentagon correspondent, Jamie McIntyre. He's watching this critically important part of the story. Jamie, what are you picking up?
Well, Wolf, insecurity in any nuclear country is a cause for concern, but in the case of Pakistan, it's not so much the threat that there would be a use of nuclear weapons, but the potential spread of nuclear weapons. Pakistan joined the nuclear club in 1998, with underground tests culminating in arms race set off decades earlier by arch-rival India. Now experts say Pakistan's secret nuclear arsenal is believed to number as many as 50 bombs. How much do we have to worry about Pakistan's nuclear weapons?
Right now, not very much. I mean, the worry is what's going to happen in the future.
Physicist David Albright, a former nuclear arms inspector, says for now, Pakistan's nukes are firmly in control of its military, and the warheads are stored unassembled, separate from the missiles that carry them. But if military control should break down, Albright says insiders may not be able to resist selling off technology for hard cash.
Pakistan, unfortunately, built its nuclear weapons program on the illicit procurement of items from developed countries. It's a culture that has greed in it, dishonesty, and in fact, the nuclear weapons program still depends on going out and buying items illegally from other countries.
The other big danger from a U.S. perspective is that a new regime could use its nukes as a threat to undermine U.S. goals and intimidate others in the region.
Whenever there's instability in Pakistan, I'm very worried, because you can have a government take over that has is very hostile to the United States, and then it would have nuclear weapons.
In his autobiography, Pakistan President Pervez Musharraf insisted that when he took over, Pakistan was on its way to a Taliban-style Islamic government. He also says he's the one that instituted firmer controls over the nuclear weapons, and that may explain why there's some concern here that if there's a change of government, even one that's more democratic, it's uncertain what it might bring. Wolf?
Jamie, thank you. Jamie's watching this critically important part of the story. Many opposition leaders are among those detained already in Pakistan, but so far, the former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto has not been arrested, although she says she can't rule out that happening. I spoke to her just a little while ago about the crisis, that interview, an exclusive interview that's coming up later this hour right here in the Situation Room. We now know the identity of the Iraqi defector.